Throughout history, the word heresy has carried the weight of condemnation, sparking inquisitions, schisms, and even wars. But what exactly is heresy? It's more than just a difference of opinion. It's a challenge to the very foundation of belief, a dangerous deviation in the eyes of those in power. And today we're going to talk about the complex and controversial world of heresy, its historical impact, and its enduring relevance in understanding the dynamics of belief systems. So heresy is not merely a slight variation in interpretation. It represents a significant departure from the core tenets and established doctrines that define a religious or ideological system. These doctrines, often codified in sacred texts, creeds, or foundational principles, form the bedrock of the belief system, providing a framework for understanding the world and one's place within it. Heresy challenges this foundational framework, introducing alternative narratives or interpretations that contradict the accepted understanding, potentially disrupting the cohesion and unity of the community. The designation of heresy is not a matter of individual opinion. It involves a formal judgment by those who wield authority within the belief system. This authority can reside in religious leaders, councils, scholarly institutions, or influential figures who are recognized as having the power to interpret and enforce doctrine. The judgment is not a neutral observation of disagreement. It's a definitive condemnation, declaring that the dissenting belief is not only incorrect, but also potentially harmful to the integrity of the system and the well-being of its adherents. The definition of heresy is inherently contextual, varying significantly depending on the specific religious or ideological framework in question. What is considered heretical within one tradition might be perfectly acceptable or even celebrated in another. This relativity stems from the fact that each belief system establishes its own unique set of core doctrines, sacred texts, and interpretive frameworks, which serve as the yardstick against which all other ideas are measured. Consequently, the boundaries of acceptable belief are fluid and subject to the specific circumstances of each system. Heresy often poses a perceived threat to the authority of religious or ideological leaders, as it challenges their interpretations and control over doctrine. Keyword, control. By introducing alternative narratives or interpretations, heretics implicitly question the legitimacy of the leaders' pronouncements and the validity of their authority. This challenge can erode the perceived infallibility of those in power, potentially weakening their influence and creating divisions within the community. Leaders often perceive heresy not merely as a theological disagreement, but as a direct assault on their position and their ability to maintain control. Heretical beliefs can act as a catalyst for schisms or splits within a religious or ideological group, fracturing the previously unified body of believers. When dissenting views gain traction, they create a fundamental divide leading to the formation of separate sects or denominations. This division arises from the irreconcilable differences in understanding, where one faction adheres to the established orthodoxy, while another embraces the newly introduced heretical views. These schisms can result in decades or even centuries of conflict, with each side claiming to represent the true faith. And throughout history, the designation of heresy has frequently been accompanied by condemnation, excommunication, and persecution, reflecting the perceived threat it poses to the established order. Condemnation, the formal declaration of a belief as heretical, often served as the initial step, publicly denouncing the dissenting ideas and their proponents. Excommunication is the severance of ties between the heretic and the community, followed effectively ostracizing individuals and severing their spiritual or social connections. In more extreme cases, persecution, the systematic harassment, imprisonment, or even execution of those deemed heretical, became a tool to suppress dissenting voices and maintain doctrinal purity. Ironically, some beliefs initially deemed heretical have eventually become accepted as orthodox over time, highlighting the dynamic and evolving nature of religious and ideological development. This phenomenon underscores the fact that the boundaries of acceptable belief are not fixed. They are subject to the same forces of change that shape all human endeavors. Doctrines that once sparked fierce condemnation can, over generations, become integrated into the mainstream, accepted as foundational truths. And while often associated with religion, heresy is not confined to the realm of faith. It can also occur within secular ideologies such as scientific or political movements, where dissenting ideas challenge the prevailing consensus. In science, groundbreaking theories that initially contradict established paradigms are often met with skepticism and resistance, sometimes even being labeled as scientific heresies. Similarly, in political movements, those who deviate from the party line or challenge the prevailing ideology can be ostracized or condemned. It's happening today. Heresy serves as a crucial mechanism for defining the boundaries of acceptable belief within a system, clarifying what is considered orthodox. By identifying and condemning dissenting ideas, a belief system reinforces its core tenets and establishes the limits of acceptable interpretation. This process of defining boundaries helps to maintain cohesion and prevent fragmentation, ensuring that the collective understanding of the faith or ideology remains consistent and unified. The concept of heresy reveals the power dynamics inherent within a belief system, highlighting who has the authority to define and enforce doctrine. Those who wield this authority, whether they be religious leaders, councils, or influential figures, assert their right to determine the boundaries of acceptable belief and to declare when those boundaries have been breached. This power dynamic underscores the fact that heresy is not merely a theological disagreement, but also a reflection of the social and political forces that shape the interpretation and dissemination of ideas. Heresy is a multifaceted and historically significant concept that transcends simple disagreement. It's a powerful tool for defining and enforcing the boundaries of acceptable belief within any given system, whether religious or ideological. While often associated with condemnation and persecution, heresy also serves as a catalyst for change, highlighting the dynamic nature of belief and the ongoing struggle for authority. The very existence of heresy underscores the inherent tension between established orthodoxy and dissenting thought, revealing the complex interplay of power, interpretation, and the evolution of ideas. By examining the historical and contemporary manifestations of heresy, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shape our beliefs and the ever-shifting landscape of human understanding. A perfect example of religious prosecution for heresy were the Cathars. I've already done a video on the Cathars. It's brutal what the church did to them. But here's a breakdown of what happened. So the Cathars, also known as the Albigensians, held dualistic beliefs, viewing the material world as evil and the spiritual world as good. They rejected many aspects of Catholic doctrine, including the sacraments, the authority of the Catholic Church in the Old Testament, and their beliefs were seen as a direct challenge to the power and authority of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, viewing Catharism as a dangerous heresy, launched a campaign to eradicate it, and the campaign culminated with the Albigensian Crusade. It lasted from 1209 to 1229, so it's 20 years of just brutal military campaign that resulted in widespread violence and massacres. The Inquisition got involved, and it was established in part to combat Catharism. It played a significant role in persecuting suspected heretics using torture and other methods to extract confessions. The Cathars were hunted down, imprisoned, and burned at the stake, and this led to the destruction of the Catholic culture. So, with the persecution of the Cathars, it resulted in the near total extermination of their community and the suppression of their beliefs, and this is one of the examples of the violence that can result from religious intolerance and the suppression of dissenting views. You also have scientific heresy. Galileo supported the heliocentric model, which placed the sun at the center of the solar system, and was considered heretical in the 17th century. It contradicted the prevailing geocentric model in the teachings of the Catholic Church, and Galileo faced persecution for his beliefs, but eventually the heliocentric model became the accepted scientific view. Galileo's story is complex. It's marked by groundbreaking scientific discoveries and a significant clash with the Catholic Church. And here's a breakdown of what happened. So Galileo's support for the heliocentric model, championed by Nicholas Copernicus, put him at odds with the Church's geocentric view. The conflict wasn't scientific, it involved interpretation of Scripture. In 1616, the Church warned Galileo to abandon his support for heliocentrism. In 1632, Galileo published a dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, which defined heliocentrism, and this led to his trial by the Roman Inquisition. In 1633, Galileo was put on trial and found vehemently suspect of heresy. He was forced to recant his beliefs and publicly deny the heliocentric model. He was sentenced to house arrest for the remainder of his life. And while he was under house arrest, and despite the restrictions, he continued his scientific work, completing 2 new sciences. He died in 1642, so about 10 years after he was put on trial and found suspect of heresy. It took centuries for the Catholic Church to fully acknowledge the validity of Galileo's findings, and in 1992, the Pope formally expressed regret for the Church's treatment of Galileo. Now, I'm going to repeat that. Expressed regret. Okay. The Indian independence movement and its challenge to British colonial rule. The British Empire's ideology upheld the belief in its right to rule over India, justifying it through notions of racial superiority and the civilizing mission. This orthodoxy dictated that Indian self-rule was not only impractical but also undesirable. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and many others challenged this orthodoxy, advocating for complete Indian independence. They employed methods ranging from non-violent civil disobedience to revolutionary action, directly confronting the legitimacy of British rule. Their arguments centered on the principles of self-determination, human rights, and the injustice of colonial exploitation. The British colonial government responded with repressive measures, including imprisonment of leaders, suppression of protests, and violent crackdowns. Many activists faced severe consequences for their heretical beliefs and actions. The Indian independence movement ultimately succeeded in dismantling British colonial rule, leading to the creation of independent India and Pakistan. This movement served as an inspiration for other anti-colonial movements around the world, which contributed to the broader decolonization of the 20th century. It also fundamentally shifted the global political landscape and challenged the idea of imperial domination. Heresy, by its very nature, directly challenges the established authority of religious or ideological leaders. It undermines the foundation of their power, the control over the interpretation and dissemination of doctrine. When dissenting voices offer alternative understandings, they implicitly question the legitimacy of the leaders' pronouncements and the validity of their interpretations. This challenge can erode the perceived infallibility of those in authority, potentially weakening their influence and creating divisions within the community. The leaders often perceive heresy not merely as a theological disagreement, but as a direct assault on their position and their ability to maintain control. By offering alternative narratives and interpretations, heretics disrupt the established hierarchy and threaten to dismantle the carefully constructed framework of power that sustained the authority of the leaders. I'll just leave it at that.